"He's a liar," my aunt screamed, taking my gifts. Years later, scamming her, she begged for my help. I opened my portfolio. The silence was deafening. My aunt managed to convince everyone in my family that I was a liar, causing me to give back all the gifts I received for my birthday and skip all family holidays. When she got scammed out of all her money and needed financial help, I revealed my bank balance and reminded her why I never share personal information. Thinking back, I really should have been suspicious when Aunt Eva offered to hold my 16th birthday party at her place. Before that, she had hardly cared about my special days, but out of nowhere, she was determined to make it super special and unforgettable. Oh, she definitely made it memorable, just not in the way anyone anticipated. I'm Luca, and I'm now 25 years old. This is the story of how my aunt gradually ruined my connection with most of my relatives, beginning with what was supposed to be one of the best days of my youth. The party began pretty regularly. My parents, Austin and Sophie, were there alongside my cousins and some other family. Aunt Eva had decorated her house with almost a ridiculous level of detail. Everything needed to be flawless, as she continually reminded us. Then I believed she was just being kind, trying to make up for never being around. Wow, was I wrong. The gift opening went really well. I got some great presents, including a new gaming console from my parents, some super expensive headphones I had wanted for ages, gift cards, and a stylish watch from my uncle. Aunt Eva wouldn't stop sticking close to me. I saw her capturing every moment on her phone, relentlessly snapping pictures of each present and meticulously writing down who the giver was. At the time, I assumed it was simply for the purpose of sending out thank-you notes, or so I thought. The oddness began to surface during the meal. My Aunt Eva kept vanishing upstairs for brief durations, returning looking increasingly uneasy. It was quite unlike her because she normally loves trying her food, but she barely ate a bite. Even my cousin Everly picked up on it. I noticed her sending me perplexing glances from across the table. Everything took a turn for the worse about 60 minutes after the meal. Aunt Eva dramatically entered the living room where we were all gathered, her face flushed and her hands trembling. "My jewelry is gone." Her voice shook, but it also had a theatrical edge. "My diamond tennis bracelet and my mother's sapphire ring have disappeared." The room went completely silent. I can still recall the feeling of my stomach plummeting, not because I was involved, but because I knew precisely where this was all going. Aunt Eva was staring directly at me, and her next words confirmed my concerns. Luca was the only person who went upstairs today, excluding myself. I hadn't been up there, though. I didn't leave the main floor at all. I attempted to speak up, but she interrupted me. "I saw you sneaking up earlier," she declared. "Don't lie to me." What ensued felt like a scene from a cheesy crime show, only it was happening to me. Aunt Eva had managed to persuade everyone that she'd seen me acting suspiciously and heading upstairs. She even had. A fabricated piece of proof surfaced, a picture on her phone that showed my reflection in an upstairs hallway mirror. Subsequently, I understood it was from the prior day when I assisted her with decorating, yet in the intensity of the argument, it looked incredibly incriminating. Initially, my parents attempted to stand up for me, but Aunt Eva was unyielding. She started sobbing, going on about how the ring was a cherished family artifact, impossible to replace, and that she'd trusted me enough to host the celebration at her home, and how I had broken that trust. She brought up random things that had happened years ago, instances where money had vanished from family events, situations I had never even known about, or times when items had disappeared from other relatives' homes, during times I wasn't even present. The most painful aspect wasn't even the accusation itself. It was seeing my family's expressions shift as they began to believe her. My mom, Sophie, who had always been my biggest supporter, started giving me a doubtful look. My dad, Austin, kept urging me to just admit the truth, using a tone of disappointment that made me want to vanish. They forced me to empty my pockets, my backpack, and they even examined the presents I'd been given. When they couldn't find anything, Aunt Eva proposed that I might have stashed the jewelry somewhere, planning to retrieve it later. That's when she delivered the real shock. She wouldn't feel at ease until every single gift I received was returned, on the off chance I planned to get rid of them to cover the loss of the jewelry. One by one, my relatives asked for. I watched all of my presents get taken away from me. The gaming system, the headphones, the watch, everything vanished. My mom and dad, seeming crushed, conceded that it was the correct course of action until things were resolved. I sat there, observing each gift being returned, as if I was trapped in a horrifying dream. The party wrapped up with me sobbing, my presents vanished, and most of my relatives giving me the stink eye like I'd committed a crime. Only my cousin Everly attempted to defend me, saying it didn't add up, but she was swiftly silenced by Aunt Eva, who implied she was too immature to get it. As we departed, Aunt Eva made a show of hugging me, and she whispered, "I hope you take something from this." The look in her eyes held something akin to victory. That's when it dawned on me that this had nothing to do with missing jewelry at all. It was definitely about something deeper. During the car ride home, my parents were quiet for the most part. My mom kept saying she was let down and that we would have this discussion at another time. My dad wouldn't even make eye contact. I tried to defend myself one last time, but my mom just said, "We brought you up with more class than this, Luca." That night, lying in my bed, I swore to myself twice. First, I would never forget how quickly my family turned on me. Second, I would work as hard as I could to guarantee I'd never require anything from any of them again. The jewelry somehow showed up again 2 weeks after that. Aunt Eva said she found it in her jewelry box where it had apparently fallen under the lining. She made a grand display of a... I remember her apologizing, explaining she was simply overloaded and mixed up. Still, the harm couldn't be undone. The presents I'd given were sent back. My family's faith in me had broken, and our connection wouldn't ever be what it once was. It marked the start of years of being shut out and getting slighting remarks, but when I look back, that birthday party was the point everything flipped. I picked up some tough lessons about family, about believing in others, and the need to have my own money. Aunt Eva had no clue that she was showing me exactly how not asterisk to treat others, a lesson that would circle back to get her later on. It's strange how fast things change, how quickly the narrative shifts from "he's just going through a rough patch" to "he's decided to cut himself off from the family." After the party incident, Aunt Eva ensured my not being at family get-togethers was constantly mentioned, yet never by saying the full truth. That Thanksgiving after I turned 16 set the direction for the years that would come. My mom showed up in my room that morning, standing in the doorway like she was speaking to someone she didn't know. "Aunt Eva thinks maybe it's better if you stayed here this year, just until things calm down." She said it like she was offering help, protecting me from something awkward. I nodded, pretending it didn't bother me while I clutched my sheets so tightly my knuckles turned pale. That was how it began, one holiday at a time, one family get-together at a time. I always tried to make sure things stayed calm. Easter was always overwhelming. Each time the message came through with the same delicate way of speaking, as if what they were saying was delicate and potentially explosive. Everly, my cousin, was the only person who kept me linked to family get-togethers. She would send me pictures and news, keeping me in the know, though it also made me feel more alone at the same time. "Eva is saying you're choosing school over family." She typed that once. "It's total garbage, Luca. My mother tried to get you to my graduation party, but Eva created a huge problem about respecting people's personal space or something like that. I just threw myself completely into my schoolwork and working at a part-time job in a local tech store. The manager there, James, evolved into a mentor to me more than any of my family members. He saw how I'd take on holiday shifts nobody else wanted. "Family stuff?" he inquired one time during a quiet Christmas Eve shift. When I gave him a quick nod, he simply said, "They're lost, kid. Let's see about getting you into our management training program." By the age of 18, I had built up a good savings account, plus a clear path for myself. While my relatives were all together for another holiday I wasn't going to, I was accepting a full scholarship to a good university 3 states away. My parents helped me move into my dorm, and I could see the struggle in their expressions. Joy in my accomplishment blended with guilt about everything else. "We should have managed things differently," my mother said as they were leaving. That was the most close she'd come to saying she was sorry, but it wasn't enough. I was running late that day. I simply gave a nod and hugged them before leaving. It felt like college was a clean slate for me. I really committed myself to computer science courses, plus I started doing some freelance web development work on the side to earn some extra cash. I funneled every single penny I made directly into savings or investments. My roommate used to tease me, saying I was the only student he knew who already had a detailed 5-year financial plan, complete with spreadsheets and quarterly benchmarks. At the same time, the family's story about me kept shifting. Everly always kept me informed about Aunt Eva's latest opinions. I was too wrapped up in my new life to give a damn about family, or maybe I was hanging out with the wrong people in college. After I got an amazing internship at a tech firm after my junior year, Eva somehow framed it as if I had always been greedy and focused on money. The truly shocking part happened in my final year of college. I had just accepted a job offer from a major tech firm. Right after graduating, I would be making 6 figures plus benefits and stock options. That same week, my mom called to tell me about the newest family crisis. Apparently, Aunt Eva had been going through some old boxes and found an expensive necklace that had disappeared years ago. She made a big display of saying she had probably misplaced it, just like the jewelry I got for my birthday. She feels really bad about the whole situation, Mom said, her voice filled with hope. Maybe it's finally time to move on and forget about what happened. The rest of the family misses me. I recall standing in my dorm room, glancing at my bank account on my laptop, seeing the healthy savings, my solid investments, and a future that I had crafted. I constructed that all myself, all by my lonesome. That's good news, I thought. I'm pleased she located her necklace. Mom, listen, I really must go to a study group session. The years following my college graduation, they represented a constant upward trajectory. I secured a decent apartment, began to become known in the technology sector, and watched my funds increase. Every holiday invite that arrived, they started coming once I'd found success, got the same answer. Regretfully, I'm extremely busy with work commitments. That wasn't even a fabrication, either. I intentionally planned significant projects around family get-togethers. Everly was the only person who truly understood how well I was thriving. She'd come to see me on a few occasions, witnessed my life directly. You ought to witness Eva's expression when people ask about you, she shared with me on her latest visit. She pretends to be concerned about your workaholic ways, but I realize it frustrates her to no end that she can't direct what people think anymore. I kept comprehensive records of all aspects of my life: bank statements, investment accounts, performance evaluations, and promotions. It was partly just sensible financial practice, but there was another motive, a rationale I couldn't bring myself to fully accept at that time. I was bidding my time. What I was waiting for remained a mystery, but something urged me to preserve those records, both literally and symbolically. Then last week, Everly phoned. Her voice had that particular inflection, the one that suggested something significant was unfolding. You should be made aware of this, she declared. Eva's in a major predicament, a really serious one. And the family, the whole family, they're gossiping about you. I settled back into my office chair, gazing out across the urban landscape. The city stretched out beneath me from my apartment window, and as I did, I opened my laptop to look at my recent bank activity. I had a hunch I'd need to see it soon. This was the last time I'd be able to check it. It's incredible how dramatically someone's demeanor can change when they're in a bind. The text from my mother arrived 3 days after Everly had called. The message said, "There will be a family meeting at Eva's place this Saturday. It's very important that you make it, Luca, please." No longer was there a request to keep the peace, and no subtle hints that maybe it would be best if I didn't attend. Just blunt desperation condensed into a couple of sentences. I knew what it was about. Everly had told me the essential details. It was Eva who had lost it all due to what she called an investment. In reality, it was one of those standard cons, offering substantial profits with rapidly approaching deadlines and directing money transfers to offshore accounts. By the time she realized what was going on, her entire life savings had vanished. We're talking about her retirement, the equity in her home, all of it. I arrived at Eva's house precisely on time, wearing a clean button-down shirt and holding a leather portfolio. I was presenting myself as professional, organized, and successful, which was the opposite of what she had been telling the family for years. The living room was overflowing with people. My mom and dad, Eva and her husband, several aunts and uncles, and even some cousins. Everly was in a corner, barely concealing a smile. The first thing I observed was how diminished Eva appeared. The strong personality that used to take over family gatherings was no longer present. I've been watching this unfold for a long time now. I saw her sitting on the sofa, nervously playing with a tissue, and the dark circles under her eyes were still visible despite her makeup. "Luca," she began, her voice cracking, "I really appreciate you being here. I wasn't sure if you'd actually come." I sat down right in front of her and I put my portfolio on the coffee table. When a member of your family is in trouble, you're there. Isn't that how it's always been? The situation wasn't lost on any of us. The irony was evident. Mom seemed uneasy, shifting in her seat. Eva started to tell us what happened. She had met someone online who claimed to be a really successful investment guy. He had shown her proof of other people's profits, and there were testimonials too. She started small, saw a little bit of return at first, then she went all in. Classic overconfidence, really. It was a straight-up scam, as I now know. She was now facing losing her home and was underwater in debt. "We're family," she said, looking around the room and then focusing her gaze on me. "And family takes care of family." I realized that we haven't exactly been close, but I was keeping my fingers crossed. I opened up my portfolio and I pulled out a bunch of papers. Before we move forward, I want to show you all something. The first paper I pulled out was a bank statement from my main savings account. The second paper I took out was my investment portfolio. The third one showed all of my property holdings. The room got quieter with each page I put on the coffee table. Oh, it's truly something, I thought to myself. Eva was focused intently, studying the figures. I had to concur that was true. You know what else is pretty amazing? How I accomplished all of this, even after being called a criminal when I was 16, and even after being completely shut out of every family get-together. On top of that, I had my birthday presents taken away, all because of a fabricated story. Luca, my mother began, but I raised my hand to stop her. I'm not done. I then got out one last paper, a hard copy of an email. This came just yesterday, and it's a promotion. It's for an executive position for the West Coast Division. I'll begin next month. Eva's complexion was drained of color. I made errors after all, but I'm sure you wouldn't just watch your own family struggle. I finished the thought for her. Leave them to handle all of their own issues alone. Funny how it all plays out, isn't it? The room became very quiet. All those years of accusations, plus the exclusions and those whispers, they were still heavy between us. I took out my checkbook. I'm going to write you a check, Eva, and not because you are deserving of it, but because I'm not like either of you. This will settle your immediate financial obligations, along with covering 3 months of your mortgage payments. It's enough time for you to sell your home and locate something that fits your new budget. Her hands were shaking as she reached for the check, but I stopped her. There are stipulations. Firstly, I want a written acknowledgement regarding what you did when I was 16. It must be shared with every person in this room. Secondly, you will get financial counseling. I will cover the expenses, but you have to attend. And third, I scanned the room. I found myself in the living room, looking each family member in the eye. I wanted them all to know that this was the end. This would be the final visit from me. I won't be their fallback option or their financial safety net anymore. Then I gave her the check. She reacted with a surprised intake of breath when she saw the sum. I stood up and stated one more thing. Do you remember those birthday presents that you made me send back? Well, I've kept a record. When you add the interest over 9 years, it totals. I handed my parents another piece of paper. I plan to donate that precise amount to a charity focused on youth education using both of your names, because I, unlike some people, maintain meticulous records of what I'm given and what I give. As I started toward the exit, Everly walked alongside me. That was amazing, she quietly said. I stopped at the doorway, turning back to the room, which was completely silent. You know what strikes me as ironic? Also, Eva, if you'd simply been considerate, if you just treated me as family, I would have helped without any stipulations. Consider that the next time you want to assess someone's character. The car ride back to my place was silent, but unlike so many times before, it wasn't due to embarrassment or rage. I felt unburdened, liberated. My cell phone buzzed with messages from relatives, apologies, rationalizations, attempts to bridge the gap. I'd look at those later. For now, I just enjoyed the quiet and the realization that sometimes the most satisfying form of getting even isn't retribution. It's about achieving so much that the people who caused you pain have to strain to even glimpse how high you've soared.